Welcome back to the Neja Chuan podcast. My name is Isaac Kamens. This is episode 35 of season 4. In this one, we're getting near wrapping up our discussion of the Yizhong School of Martial Arts in Taiwan in the 1970s. In this one, we hear directly from the words of Zhang Jun Feng, the teacher of Heng Yishang, the founder of the Yizhong School. And this is his sort of discourse on the practice of Bagua Zhang. This comes from Blurred Boundaries, the book by Heng Zihan, the son of Heng Yishang. And it focuses mostly on Bagua's sort of approach to martial arts and fighting, but it also mentions how it is used, how circle walking is used as a method of cultivation, which, if you know anything about that school, is not particularly a main theme in their stuff. So it's sort of interesting to hear him talking about it on that level. Anyways, hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves and be well.
Coming around full circle, we want to return back to one of the stories from Blurred Boundaries by Heng Zihan from 2003, the story of the life of the master Heng Yishang. So in this chapter, Heng Yishang's teacher, Zhang Jun Feng, is giving advice on how to practice Bagua. So it's interesting hearing the voice of the Grand Master speaking directly to the reader. He's just giving you all his suggestions on how to practice. So this is chapter 50, Discourse on Bagua. Scene, Zhang Jun Feng's new residence. The following is a monologue by Zhang Jun Feng. So here's his first thing he says. Different from other internal martial arts, the path walked by Bagua Zhang is to create stillness from action, a kind of extremely proactive and predatory martial art. So I like that statement. Proactive and predatory.
Yeah,
Like,
that's to like contrast from like Tai Chi or something, right? He's like,
right,
this isn't some soft shit. We're going after you.
right. And that's something that the best practitioners I've gone with when they cross hands with you, it's like they're hunting you down in a proactive way rather than waiting for you to strike and throwing you, like say in Aikido or something like that. Bagua is trying to provoke you. I think that's one of, especially Lodesh, she likes to talk about you poke the snake to get it to coil up and to get it to react. You want to spark something by reaching into their space. In It's sort of like a feint, but if they don't do anything, then you just keep going. But like you're trying to get something going and get them moving and take advantage of that.
You initiate a change,
Hmm.
right? So like you initiate so that something they start to change, move,
To
whatever, right?
force them to initiate and take,
And then that allows you to change with what they're doing. Where like Shingy just goes right in and just fuck it, doesn't care
it
what
kind
they
of doesn't matter what they do, right? Yeah. Yeah, but Bagua wants you to make a move so they can take, like, say you take a step, maybe the Bagua person sweeps that leg, or you reach out your hand up, so then they flip over
right.
and grab your wrist, whatever. Like it creates something to happen there. So the next thing he says, among the three internal martial arts, it also got its start latest. In Chinese fist arts, regardless of the size of the school or when it originated, it inevitably shrouds itself in a thick and mysterious light. It's just those far-fetched legends are of no real benefit to the development of martial arts. It's all right to listen to them, but they aren't giving you any advantage. So he's speaking of that mysterious origins. Um, so this is interesting. He says the disadvantage to a boxing art that got started late is often that the completeness can be lacking. But its advantage is that the nature of the skills will be of a higher level because, after all, its framework is created on top of the existing technical levels. There are more models and theoretical foundations to be referred to. So I think that's interesting. That's one thing that the Gao style master from Tianjin, Liu Shuhong, he said that too. He said Bagua is most recent martial art, so therefore it's the best of them all because it's built on all the success of the previous ones. But here, Zhang Jifeng says there's also a disadvantage that it might not be complete, like it might be missing some things. It's so new.
Right. It hasn't it has the largest amount of resources to pull
Hmm.
from, but the least amount of time to develop that into
Hmm.
something cohesive, right?
Right.
Which is why I think, in some ways Bagua is um, the least consistent of the internal martial arts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
Chingy's the most consistent, right? You can almost, regardless of the school, you can tell which technique they're doing, right? Like
Right. Five elements are
five elements,
pretty
the five
darn.
elements. It's very obvious which one's which, right? Tai Chi's kind of in the middle. There's stylistic differences, but like you can tell the single whip and Wu style is different from the Yang style, but you could tell that it's the same move, right?
Right, right, for sure.
And the
And they're
and
usually in a similar order.
right, and I was gonna say, and they follow the same pattern. You get to Bagua, everybody's got a different,
Right,
like different way of doing
right,
it, different order of doing it. They mix different things into it.
right,
Some people do it straight, some
right.
people do it on a circle.
And somebody's number eight is somebody else's number two.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's like there's almost no consistency to
There's,
it
yeah.
from group to
Single
group.
palm change is usually the
That's the one,
recognizable
right? You get
commonality. So at least there's
pretty
one
much
thing,
that,
but
right? Everybody kind of agrees on, single palm is you got one hand up, you do a toe in, you switch, and then you do a toe out, and you got that other hand up, right?
yeah.
Doesn't matter what school it is, right? But even that, there's, I mean, 90 different probably ways you could do just that, right? I mean, that was that line about Wang Sheng knowing 92 different versions of the single palm change, It's like, okay, that's a little
Yeah.
much.
All right. So the next thing is that during practice, imagine the enemy is in the center of the circle and use two stepping methods, button and swing step, to walk around the circle outside of the enemy and change the palm concurrent with a button step to initiate the attack. So button is often ko boot,
Right.
ko step. They often say plus pressing a button in through a buttonhole is sometimes to have the description of the word ko. And then here he's calling swing step,
Yeah.
which is the inner step,
Right.
inner footstep. So ko being the outer foot, bai being the inner foot.
Right. So the ko is a toe in, the by is a toe out.
And so the purpose is to use constant movement and change to disrupt the enemy, so the enemy has no way to focus smoothly and marshal their attack. It trains you in moving and changing steps to find openings into which you can reach. Because of the focus on attack, we especially emphasize an intention to strike unexpectedly and use fast hands to strike the slow. So that's some good advice. Like, yeah, if you move quickly and change, you can disrupt the enemy's attention by constantly moving in different directions than they expect.
Right. I mean, it's that you're a moving target essentially, right?
Yeah. And then use fast hands to strike the slow. So basically, if they have something hanging out, you whip out and either grab it or strike it. Find openings, look for
Yeah. I mean,
openings.
I think that's the idea that basically you don't move until there's an opening, and then once there's an opening, you move as fast as you can, right? It's like but you don't do that until there's a clear
There better be an
opportunity to
opening.
do it
Yeah.
without, you know, getting
Well, and take that fast hand and strike the slow so that can open up a doorway by
right. I think by
slapping an
what I
arm
mean
out of
by
the
the
way.
slow is when the other person is, stuck or not moving, right? You can hit them
Or they
quick.
have a gap in their
Yeah,
attention
yeah.
kind of thing. So here's the origins. He says this kind of continuous and circular training method is said to be a cultivation method employed by Taoist priests circling the incense burner, orbiting the celestial worthy to seek enlightenment. Its biggest advantage is that one can do unlimited exercise in a limited place. That's yeah, and yet another way of interpreting Jing Qi Shen. And of all schools, it's always said Zhang Jun Feng wasn't that tutti fruity kind of health focus. He was always Mr. Fighting focus, but here he's the one saying that the circle walking is not for fighting, it's for a qigong for developing Jing Qi Shen, which is, of all people, he'd be the least likely in my mind because he's just known for being no nonsense about stuff and not like a chi guy or whatever. But here, there he goes. So another thing about Zhang Jinfeng is that the one of the books that's purported to be from his collection is called the Zotian Chu, the the book about the microcosmic orbit, or I guess cosmic orbit book. And that goes into more discussion of stuff like, Jing Qi Shen, microcosmic orbit, the macrocosmic orbit, and stuff like that within Bagua, which is a somewhat mysterious and interesting book that includes um, what Lotus Yu told me about it was that this he thought it was either from um, Zhang Jun Feng's wife or from Pan Yue, got a copy of it and had Lion Book and gave it to Lion Books to publish. Mr. Liu over at Lion Books to publish. He said, Lo said, this is a real book, not one of the fake ones. Um, this isn't the book that they have in Tianjin. Said this is the Gonghua manual that as the might be the writer of the book, who then gave it to Wu Mengxia. No, I'm sorry, Han Muxia gave it to Wu Mengxia, who gave it to Zhang Jun Feng.
Hey, folks, Isaac here. We covered this book in episode 33 of this season. So if you want to hear us talk about that, you can listen to that. I'll put a link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. Thanks.
So one more thing from Zhang Jinfeng in terms of mud stepping. So he says, mud step requires the weight of the whole body to ride on the back foot, while the front foot empties and lifts up, probing forward. The ultimate goal is to be able to unify the whole body power. Toes touch the ground, the soles of the feet are empty, and the E in tension rises from the bubbling springs point. Pull up the sphincter, let the innate true chi pass up through the Ren and Du channels to achieve the effect of nourishing bones. So that's
Right.
his,
So, okay. So let's break that
yeah.
down. So you got,
I mean, he's basically talking about unify the whole body through the stepping method.
right. So the intention, that's your E, your mind, rises up through the bubbling wellspring. That's the ball of your
So it
foot.
goes up through your legs.
Uh, Pull up through the sphincter. That's the
So that's
perineum.
that lifting of the guts kind of feeling.
Right. And then let the true chi, that's the like unifying original chi, pass up through the ren, that's the back of the spine, and the du, that's the front going down, right? So basically it's like by doing this walking, you're creating that flow
You're
essentially.
basically doing Taoist internal Neigong or alchemy, depending on how you describe it, by circulating qi through the back and front channels as you walk. And
Right.
something about this stepping, something about the pulling up through the Huiyin kicks off the circulation of the microcosmic orbit, which is normally something you do in Taoism while you're sitting there. So this is
Well,
kind
you
of,
also do it in Qigong, though. I mean, there's
yeah,
lots of, I think what it is,
lots of people do it
there's
while they're stepping too. I mean, I don't see that
well,
reference
no,
too
but
often.
usually it's like in qigong a lot of times it's just weight shifting. Right? Shifting your weight from the balls of your feet to the heel of your foot, for example. We'll get that
Do you do that in
oh
Negong?
later.
Yeah.
Right. So they're sort of um I mean you can do it with breathing too. There's multiple ways to kind of tap into the flow because it's not that you're creating it, it's that certain actions uh, let's just call it nourish that flow, you know, make it stronger, make
Hmm.
it more, refined, whatever. So some of those are physical, some of those are, intentional, and some of those are what you call energetic, right? So what he's saying, I think, here is that the walking, the walking is essentially a combination of all of those things, right? Because you're using your physical body, your mind is making, that's what that whole thing with like, something is in your foot, right? Your awareness. And then, on top of that, you start to create this chi.
So yeah, there's that two sides of it, obviously. You've got your full body power for combat, and then you've got this chi nourishing training that's inevitably found in Bagua. So as much as
And it's
people
kind
want
of
to
like,
talk about the bodyguard side and how it was a practical martial art, you always keep running across these mystical and energetic trainings in there somewhere.
well, it's sort of like a side effect, I think, more
Mm,
than
yeah, absolutely.
that it's like
Yeah.
you could, if you were, going at it from a more spiritual bend, for example, you could do it more as a walking meditation, right? But I think what Bagua Zhang, the martial art, looks to do is, in a sense, it's like you're doing the martial art. That's what your practice is, but the way you're doing the martial
Mm.
art should be nourishing this internal thing, right? And so
You're
it's
getting two for one kind of.
yeah, exactly. And then if you add the meditation part, you get a three for one, right? Um, but that's even more bizarre. But there is that thing of like multi-layering your activities. I think that's something that like you quote internal arts too. That's in a sense what makes them internal, right? Is you have multi-layered focus essentially,
Sure.
right? So anything can become internal, right? Because if you're focused on, shit, if you're focused on shoveling and then you're also breathing, you're doing an internal thing. Yeah, it's a internal shoveling art, right? Like so it's again the genius of something like Bagua Zhang is that the motions of it are in a sense I don't say perfectly matched, but very closely perfectly matched to how these things flow inside your body and outside of your body. And so it like it does it almost without you knowing that it's happening, right? For a while because you can't really feel that it's happening, and then at some point you just I'm not. It's sort of like the frog in the what is it? The boiling frog, right? You don't really notice the change
Yeah.
that much, but because it's just you're in it,
Yeah.
right? But like you are changing, and that's where I think that ability to observe yourself comes into it, right? Sort of the meditation
Mm.
Buddhist Shin idea, like that there has to be something that you can say, okay, I'm gonna like kind of watch myself do this from another place so I can see what's happening, right? And that's where that's the sort of final level of it, right? That you're able to like do the martial art, but it's almost like you're watching it in slow motion, right?
Hmm.
Because your mind is, not frantically trying to do everything as you do it, right? It's sort of calmly just sitting there aware of the whole space and your body is just reacting to that. And so, it's just describing being relaxed and mentally aware, I think, but you give it a nice sort of um, spiritual bend to it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's seems like pretty consistent advice, but I like the whole thing about how the idea of just doing the practice causes the internal alchemy to happen on its own. It's not something you're pushing or forcing or kind of creating. It's like just the actual act of turning the circles properly with the mud stepping can kick off all this qigong effect. And I I think there's some truth to that for sure. So that's good
Right. I mean,
advice.
the example Brewster gives in one of his books is it the grinding rice or
Sure.
whatever?
Grinding the
Okay,
wheat,
just
yeah.
doing some circular motion over and over and over and over, and eventually just watching that circle grinding, grinding, grinding. He taps into that thing that all, the circular, spherical,
Nature
flowing
of
thing that
things,
we're all
yeah.
part of. It's like, yeah, it's
Enlightenment is only
pretty
a
shit.
step away.
And to bring it back, like you said, Zhang Jun Feng is not a guy who was
Fluffy.
well known for his being all light and fluffy. He was, yeah. So it's interesting to see that, even the guys who were, you know, bruiser brawlers were
Yeah.
like, no, this does have a
Yeah.
element to it where, and that's where I wonder, like, because we talked about earlier, he was part of that ego and Tao
Mm.
thing, and so where, some of this was, um, where that
Could
spiritual
be,
side
yeah.
stuff came
Yeah,
into.
maybe not something you learn in Bagua class necessarily, or there's just a lot of crossover. It's like we've been talking on the Patreon, like this whole movement of 1900 to 1925 or whatever, where just rich people, religious people, and martial arts people are intermixing in Beijing and taking the whole energetic and Taoist side of it to a whole new level. And this is a product of all that, which is pretty cool. That's why I got into it because it's just a pretty awesome mix.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's not for everybody,
Right.
right?
And
Lots of
how many
people are,
times have we said that over the years?
well, meaning most people will be happy with
Yeah,
one of those things or two of those things
totally.
or doing each of those things in
Yeah,
separate.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think that's where, like a lot of people will meditate, they'll do yoga, and they'll do, jujitsu, right? But they don't do all three of those things at the same
Right,
time, right? And the Bagua weirdos were like, let's see if we can do all three
right.
of these at the
Just
same
hammer them
time.
all together. All right, well, let's finish up next time, and we'll finish Zhang Jun Feng's discourse on Bagua and bring
All
season
right.
four to a finish.
Sounds
All
good.
righty.
Hey, folks, hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting us. Take care of yourselves and be well.